This is a recap of our Norwegian Fjords cruise on Celebrity Apex, sailing Monday, July 31st, 2023 for 9 nights, Rotterdam to Amsterdam. We departed Orange County on July 28th and connected in Dallas-Fort Worth to an American Airlines overnight flight to Amsterdam. Our flight arrived in Amsterdam about 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, July 29th. We planned to arrive 2 days early to assure we were not victimized by any airline schedule issues and to make use of the time to take in some sights in and around Amsterdam. Our early arrival was unsupported by any cruise line sponsored transfers, so we transited to the centrally located Amsterdam Marriott Hotel using a local transportation company that we booked ahead on Viator. We had pre-booked a tour of the Anne Frank house for late in the afternoon the day of arrival. After a few hours rest in the hotel, we set out on foot for our 4:30 appointment to tour the Anne Frank house. The walk took about half an hour and gave us an opportunity to absorb a little of the ambiance of Amsterdam from street level. After touring the Anne Frank house, we had an informal dinner at a Turkish kebab restaurant and then walked back to the hotel to prepare for the next day of touring the Dutch countryside. We pre-booked an independently arranged small group tour of the Dutch countryside on Viator for Sunday, July 30th, 2023. We set out early on this all-day small group tour through the countryside that day. The tour was 10 hours in duration. By the first stop, we appreciated that the small group experience was different and worth the extra cost. With only 8 traveling companions in a minivan, we were able to converse with the driver guide in ways not possible on a larger tour bus containing a herd of 50 to 60 guests. Our first stop was Zaanse Shans, which should be at the top of every short list of places to visit, especially if your time is limited. There are superb photo opportunities, with windmills, a couple of which are fully restored and operational. You get to witness cheese making and wooden shoe making demonstrations. Admittedly, these were a bit kitsch, but not overdone, and we enjoyed them anyway. Our driver guide had gotten us there about a half an hour ahead of the bigger tour buses, and the village filled up fast after that. At about noon, we loaded up and headed for the rural village of Geithoorn. After a 2-hour drive and a short lunch break, we took a boat ride through the waterways of the village, often referred to as the Venice of the Netherlands, which is only accessible by boat. We were able to dodge a little rain to make this a very pleasant stop. After the long day, we were happy to return to our Amsterdam hotel to prepare for embarkation the next day. At the time of booking, the departure and arrival ports had both been Amsterdam. We had reserved our pre-cruise hotel and all of the associated activities for Amsterdam. Months later, Celebrity changed the departure port from Amsterdam to Rotterdam. Since we had arrived early, there weren't any Celebrity-sponsored bus transfers from Amsterdam to Rotterdam on offer. This post-booking port change wound up costing us $200 for private transport to Rotterdam. With about 3,000 passengers in the same boat, no pun intended, you can imagine that the available transfer resources were fully booked by embarkation day. The pro cruiser tip here is don't wait until the last minute to book your hotel to ship transfer. Some of the folks that were in the lobby there were suffering a little bit as a result of having waited till the last minute. We gathered in the hotel lobby, which was packed with fellow cruisers, and awaited the transfer that we had pre-booked on Viator. After the hour-long transit to Rotterdam, we unloaded our luggage curbside at the cruise terminal. As we were preparing to get in a very long line to transfer our luggage to the porters, we had the extreme good fortune to have a porter emerge from the ship right in front of us with a luggage cart. He took our bags right there, so we avoided the line. The rest of the check-in went really fast. After settling into our cabin, which was ready when we boarded, we had 2 sea days until the first port call in Oslo. We made use of that time to survey the ship. We will cover the results of that survey at the end of the video. We always select cruise line shore excursions, always, for all the same reasons that are well publicized. On this day, we had booked the Norwegian Explorers Shore Excursion, a tour that recognizes the significant contribution of Norwegian explorers to global exploration. We boarded a bus for a short ride just across the harbor to the Big Doy Peninsula, where sit several museums, all conveniently located in one place, including the Kon-Tiki Museum, the Fram Museum, the Viking Ship Museum, the Norwegian Museum of Cultural History, and the Norwegian Maritime Museum. We learned that a couple of hours was not enough time to visit all of these. The 2 that we did visit on that day were full of fascinating exhibits. If you are a history buff like me, I recommend that you allocate an entire day to visiting just these museums in this location. The Kon-Tiki Museum contains 2 original vessels used by famed Norwegian explorer Thor Heyerdahl in some of the great sea voyages in modern history. In April 1947, Kon-Tiki, a raft made of balsa wood carrying 6 men and a parrot, sailed out of Callao, Peru for Polynesia. The expedition was the result of a theory then 33-year-old Heyerdahl had been pondering, that islands in the South Pacific could not have been populated solely by people from the West. It must also have been populated by indigenous South Americans. After 101 days at sea, the Kon-Tiki ran aground on a coral atoll in Polynesia. The expedition had been an unconditional success. At the time, the voyage was an international sensation. The documentary film of the same title, shot by the crew during the journey, won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Film in 1951. It is screened continuously until now at the Kon-Tiki Museum. In 1970, Heyerdahl wanted to show that prehistoric civilizations on both sides of the Atlantic could have been in contact with each other by means of reed boats. The reed boat Ra 2 sailed 6,100 kilometers from Morocco to Barbados in 57 days. The long-standing dogma that there could not have been any contact between the Mediterranean region and South or Central America prior to Columbus's discovery was disproved. Heyerdahl died in 2002 as a national hero at age 87 from a brain tumor. He was honored with a state funeral. The Fram Museum, located in the same museum complex, is known as the finest in Norway. The centerpiece of the museum is the world's strongest wooden ship, the polar ship Fram. The Fram was the first ship specially built in Norway for polar research. She was used by Roald Amundsen for his 1910 to 1912 expedition to Antarctica that discovered the South Pole. After the Antarctica expedition, with World War I in the interim, the Fram was eventually sailed home to Norway, where it laid for several years, almost as a wreck. In 1929, it was restored with donor support. In May 1936, the Fram Museum was opened. Today, the public can go on board and take a look around in the cabins, lounges, cargo hold, and engine room. This was a really terrific experience. The Viking Ship Museum is most famous for the completely restored Oseberg ship, excavated whole from the largest known ship burial in the world. But the museum is closed for refurbishment until sometime in 2025 or 2026. We could not visit this museum. The Norwegian Museum of Cultural History, aka the Folk Museum, was closed. The museum contains artifacts and extensive collections from all social groups in all regions of the country. It also incorporates a large open-air museum with more than 150 buildings relocated from towns and rural districts. We did not have time to visit this museum. The Norwegian Maritime Museum contains exhibits on coast culture and maritime history, covering a number of subjects including shipbuilding, boat models, fishing, marine archaeology, and shipping. We also did not have time to visit this museum. After the museum complex, we proceeded back onto the bus to Frogner Park, home of the Vigeland installation. Gustav Vigeland is most widely known for the Vigeland installation, a permanent sculpture installation in Frogner Park in Oslo. In 1921, the city of Oslo decided to demolish the house where Vigeland lived to build a library. After a long dispute, Vigeland was granted a new building from the city where he could work and live. In exchange, he promised to donate to the city all of his subsequent works. Vigeland moved into his new studio during 1924 in the vicinity of Frogner Park. Over the following 20 years, Vigeland was devoted to the project of an open exhibition of his works, which later turned into what is known as the Vigeland Sculpture Arrangement, featuring 212 bronze and granite sculptures. It is a national treasure. August 4th, 2023, Geiranger. We elected the Mount Dalsnibba shore excursion. The first stop after heading up the mountainside by bus is a turnout that provides an excellent viewpoint overlooking the end of the fjord and the ships at anchor there. Make sure to get lots of photos here, because further up, the view from the top of Mount Dalsnibba is often obscured by weather, as it was on the day we visited. So the overlook further down turned out to be our only viewpoint of the fjord on the day that we visited. Lake Djupvatnet. Djupvatnet is a lake that lies at the foot of the Nibvigen Road on the approach to Mount Dalsnibba. The lake is 3,330 feet above sea level. Nibvigen, also known as Eagle Road. The road to Mount Dalsnibba viewpoint is relatively new. It wasn't paved until 2013. It's called Nibvigen Road, also known as the Eagle Road. The drive offers Europe's highest fjord view from a road. It is a very exciting drive with 11 sharp hairpin turns. Driving up the winding road is one of the most beautiful and hair-raising drives in Norway. Mount Dalsnibba Viewpoint. Mount Dalsnibba is located at the end of the Geiranger Valley, about 4 miles south of the village of Geiranger and the Geiranger Fjord. It offers spectacular views on a clear day and is a top tourist attraction. The Dalsnibba Skywalk is a viewing platform that was opened in 2016. Thanks to its ingenious floor surface and glass guardrail, the skywalk gives you a sensation of floating, with a clear drop of approximately 500 meters beneath your feet. There is a visitor center with a good selection of Norwegian specialty items. On the day we visited, the summit was fogged in. Expect this and plan accordingly. August 5th, 2023, Flam. We elected the Norway in a nutshell excursion. The Flamsbana, or Flam Railway, is one of the most scenic train journeys in the world. The Oslo to Bergen train route is more commonly known as the Norway in a nutshell tour. This popular journey offers breathtaking scenery of fjords, waterfalls, snow-capped peaks, and small goat farms clinging to the mountainsides. The program for the day was a one-way bus ride from Flam to Myrdal, with stops along the way. In Myrdal, we boarded the historic Flamsbana for the one-way trip back down to Flam. To start the day, we boarded a bus in Flam and made our first stop in Geithoorn. You may elect to visit the Viking village there. This was a short bathroom break for us. The next stop was a photo opportunity in Tvindefossen, a spectacular waterfall located about 7.5 miles north of the village of Vassvangen. The many-stranded waterfall is 381 feet tall. We departed the bus at Vassvangen and had lunch at a local hotel. After lunch, we transferred to a modern train for the ride to the remote Myrdal station, and from there transferred again to the historic Flamsbana rail cars. The Flamsbana winds its way down the mountain back to Flam, stopping at the amazing Sjøsfossen on the way. The Sjøsfossen waterfall is one of the most visited tourist attractions in Norway. The total fall is around 738 feet. Olden, August 6, 2023. We elected the Exploring the Beauty of the Nordfjord shore excursion. We set off from Olden on a panoramic bus tour of the Nordfjord. The fjord is the sixth longest in Norway, stretching 66 miles from the mouth. The region includes Lake Hornvinset, Europe's deepest lake at 1,686 feet. We stopped at the town of Nordfjordeid at a local hotel for a light snack. Most of the settlements in the area would qualify as villages. Nordfjordeid, on the other hand, is a town and is a commercial hub from the municipality and greater Nordfjord region. It is the shopping hub for surrounding villages and towns. Bergen, August 7th, 2023. We elected the Bergen Highlights shore excursion. Bryggen is a historic harbor district in Bergen, one of North Europe's oldest port cities, which was established as a center for trade by the 12th century. In 1350, the Hanseatic League established a Hanseatic office in Bergen. They gradually acquired ownership of Bryggen and controlled the trade in stockfish from northern Norway. Bryggen has been damaged by a number of fires through the centuries and has been rebuilt each time following the previous property structure and plan as well as building techniques. Bryggen's appearance today stems from the time after the fire of 1702. The buildings are made of wood. Today, some 62 buildings remain of this former townscape, and these contain sufficient elements to demonstrate how this colony lived and worked. Disembarkation on July 8, 2023 was uneventful.